Hi, this is Wesley Lawton. I'm the grief counselor at Hospice of Michigan in Macomb County, and I'm the facilitator of the Men Overcoming Loss of Partner or Spouse grief support group. The group takes place the third Tuesday of each month from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. It takes place online over Zoom, as well as in person at our office in Clinton Township. And you can attend either way and join with the group. The way we've got it set up is we have a table with some chairs in another room of the office where I'm at here in Clinton Township. And then we've got a large TV which we connect over Zoom, and it's got a camera on there. So, it's not, we can't really all be together in the same room, but it's about as close as we can get at this point. And got a great group of guys. For those who haven't attended or maybe haven't attended in a long time, I would say consistently anywhere from about 7 to 10 guys attending, plus myself and our wonderful volunteer, Ron Grease, who just celebrated his 25th year as a Hospice of Michigan volunteer. And so we're so thankful that he's active in this group as well, sharing from his experiences and his wisdom over the years in his own grief journey. So I hope that you can join us if you are able to. It's a very special thing to be able to gather with other men who are grieving the loss of a spouse or of a partner, and who get it more than others in your life may, and to help you feel less alone. It can be a comfortable place to express, and it's one of the things that happened a lot in this last meeting. So this video is just a summary of the main topics that were talked about. We had a couple of new guys in the group and a little bit of a longer time of introductions as some were sharing their stories or sharing about where they were at today or at that time. And so that's important, and had a lot of patience and support from everybody in the group. And I think that everybody shared. So that's always nice to see. There were 10 here this time, and the group took place on December 20th, 5 days before Christmas. And I think that everyone in the group celebrated Christmas historically in one way or another, as opposed to another holiday or skipping over it. So that's one of the things that we talked about. So let me just start there. There were at least 2 or 3 of the guys who were talking about how this was their first Christmas after each of their wives had died, and they were just trying to just kind of skip through it, just kind of keep their head down, no decorations, no Christmas music, not necessarily paranoid about it, but really not acknowledging it either, and just looking forward to it being over. And I'm a proponent for most people to try to participate if you feel like you're able to, not fully necessarily, but perhaps scaled back, and to do just 1 or 2 rituals or traditions that you would normally do. Maybe get together with a small group of people or 1 or 2 people to do something just to kind of, that tradition can be meaningful. It can certainly make you miss your spouse more than usual. I don't deny that. It doesn't help you feel better necessarily. And so if you feel that it's too much to handle, then, just skipping right through it is also fine and totally legitimate. And I'll get to that. But if you feel like you're open to giving it a try, understanding that it's going to be hard and you probably will cry, you might have some moments where you fall apart, and you will survive those moments. You will get through them. But it's important to face your grief and go through it and express your feelings, and even to fall apart at times. And so this is really an opportunity to do that very unpleasant bit of grief work. And it can also make the time more meaningful, help you feel more connected to your spouse or to your loved one who died in this time of year that you have shared for other guys in the group many times together. Lots of happy memories that will be greatly missed. It can help connect you to those memories and to your spouse, and just allow you to take a step forward in your grief. But, again, it's very legitimate and understandable and necessary for some people to just sort of keep your head down and just survive it and try to ignore it as much as you can. That's fair, and you're allowed to do that. And if that's what you feel you need to do, then more power to you. And hopefully you don't feel the need to do that in future years if this has normally been a time that you have enjoyed. And I hope that you can work towards enjoying it again, or at least not dreading it quite so much. But if you need to do it for your first time or your first couple times, if life is crazy or whatever, that's okay. In fact, that leads me in, oh, and by the way, the people in your life may have a hard time understanding that, which is one of the things we talked about as well. And then I think I went over a bit in this last time. And, what you can do is just let them know that you're grieving and that it's really painful for you and that you're going to hopefully try again in the future. But for now, you're just doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. And hopefully they respect you and understand enough to allow you to do that and to give you the space you need, and hopefully even to support and to ask, how can I help you during this time? That would be great if you have people like that in your life. And if not, there's only so much that you can do to make them understand. Perhaps they're well-meaning and they just want you to be okay, even though they can't make you be okay. So maybe some of that speaks to your situation. But we were talking about how different people need different things. And I think this is the other big thing that I would like to discuss in this video, a little bit shorter one this time, because again, there was more just sharing of individual stories, which I won't get into too much here. Excuse me. I'm going to pause the video and take this call. It's one that I've been waiting for. So one moment. Let's see if I can stop the recording. Oh, come on. Okay, sorry about that. That's all part of the job, is being flexible. So I appreciate you joining me in that, being flexible. So anyway, I was talking about how different people have different needs. And in that group last night, we had guys whose losses had occurred just a month or two before the group took place, or 3 months. And we had quite a few guys where it was right around a year ago, some where it was over 2 years, and everything in between. And in the past, we've had guys join whose losses were less than a week before. So of course, very, very fresh and still with a lot of denial and shock at that point, which is normal. And even among those guys where the loss was more recent or less recent, if it had taken place over 2 years ago, there were some differences in what kinds of challenges they were facing and how they were facing their challenges. So when it came to Christmas, there were guys who they were finding it helpful to participate with holiday traditions and getting together with loved ones, with their kids or whomever. And there were others, as I said, who were just trying to make it through and ignore it as much as they could. And again, both are legitimate, just depending on your needs and what's helpful for you, and what you feel able to tackle. And there's no shame one way or another. Neither way is necessarily wrong. It just depends on the person. And then with those whose losses were longer ago, there were some who were saying, yeah, I've come a long way and it's not so much of a challenge now. And, I'm just kind of part of the group to help support other people, and to, it helps me to some extent as well. And there were others where it was over a year and they were crying every day and just having a very, very difficult time with it. It was still a major challenge in their life. And, I don't want to sound like I'm kind of wishy-washy and just like my whole role is to say, yep, that's normal, that's normal, that's normal. But in this case, that's true, is that, those people, at least I believe as a grief counselor, having gotten to help many hundreds of grieving individuals, to be having such a hard time over 2 years later, that's pretty common, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with you if that's the case for you. The way I see it is that instead of trying to give out a timeline for this is how long this should take, this is how long, by this amount of time, your life should look this way, your grief should look that way. I don't find that to be very helpful in general. But instead of that, to think about, where was I at yesterday, or a month ago, or 6 months ago? And what are the things that I'm working on now? And what am I doing to work on those things to move forward? To think about the process and growth on an individual basis moving forward, based on what you need and what your situation is, and what you'd like to work on, what your goals are. So I hope that that also might be helpful for anybody watching this, and seeing others who are grieving. Even if you're a part of this group and you're seeing others who are grieving in this group and noticing that they might be a little bit farther along in some areas or not as far along in other areas, comparing and saying that everybody should follow this cookie cutter program with grief or something, it's just not the way that it works. And in fact, it's self-sabotaging to try to think about it that way. So again, just hope that that clears it up to some extent, and we can be there for one another in the middle of it all, and just allow them to be where they're at and help support them in the goals and the challenges that they're working through and working towards, and just allow space for them. So, the other thing that we talked about was about crying. And I think that I covered this a little bit. I don't know if it's in the last video or the one before that, but just about how the tears that we cry when we're grieving are chemically different than other types of tears, whether it's tears of joy or from cutting an onion or whatever else. And that our brain is releasing stress hormones through those tears. This is what scientific research has shown us. And that's not necessarily the case with other types of tears. And what was the other thing that our volunteer Ron was saying? Oh, that it gives you endorphins, I believe it is. Neuroscience is not my area. I know a little bit about it, but it's not my focus. But I believe he said that it was endorphins or maybe serotonin. But either way, a chemical that occurs naturally in our brains that helps us feel better, that helps us feel good and less sad and despairing. So just kind of a more scientific way of looking at the fact that crying is a natural response to grief and to sadness, loneliness, and these other things that accompany loss. And I was encouraging the guys to allow themselves to cry, to understand that it's kind of a release valve for our body, and it's a way of healing over time, and even in the moment, feeling a little bit better. And acknowledging the fact that for many men, we were taught big boys don't cry from a young age, and that men should not be crying either, that it's some kind of sign of weakness, or something's broken about us or something like that, makes us less of a man. Those messages they don't line up with the way that our bodies are designed, that our minds are, the way that we naturally respond to a loss, the way that we grieve, healthy mourning. It just doesn't line up with any of that. And so I feel comfortable saying that those things are false and unhelpful, and that if we can get rid of those messages and practice, and it does take practice, allowing ourselves to cry when we feel the need instead of pushing it back down, letting it come, even if it's, at first maybe it would just be privately. And then if you can do it around other people, we talked about a little in the group how when you're around other people who are also missing your spouse or your partner, that if you are able to allow yourself to cry, that can be a gift to them, permission to them to also be able to cry and to be honest about how they feel, so that you can kind of acknowledge and support one another through your pain and work through it together. That's a beautiful thing when that can happen, instead of feeling like you all have to kind of tiptoe around the issue and just try not to bring up any difficult feelings. Those feelings are there. And if we can be honest with ourselves and with one another about it, like I believe that we are much of the time in this support group, we can do that with your loved ones. That's a really helpful way of getting more support and being able to work through your grief in a healthier way, and in a way where it won't be a challenge for you for as long. Let's see, two last things very briefly. One, and I don't think I really brought this up in the group because we ran out of time, but talked a little bit about how processing the final days of your loved one's life, and that can be traumatic. I should say those memories, those events were traumatic. The memories are traumatizing, and as I've explained in some other recent videos, we know a lot in the mental health field about how there are very efficient ways of working through trauma. And They're relatively simple and relatively painless, if you work with a therapist who knows what they're doing. And so I just want to encourage anybody who is haunted by these unwanted thoughts to seek out the help of a therapist who has experience in EMDR or some other type of trauma approach, and experience with that and training in that, because you don't need to be bogged down by these intrusive thoughts for any longer than you would need to. It's something that you can work through in a matter of months or even of weeks, at least through the worst of it. So I think it's kind of crazy or foolish not to seek out help for that, if that's something that is available to you. And I think it probably is available to just about everybody watching this. If that's a challenge for you, the traumatic memories, to seek out help with that. And you can contact me and I can help you with that, to find somebody. I use primarily a tool called psychologytoday.com. It's PSYCHOLOGY today.com. They have a search engine there for therapists, and there are many, many people listed on there. And so you can search by your area and filter it down based on what you're looking for and your insurance coverage and things like that, to find somebody who's a good fit for you. And in some cases, you may need to call your insurance company if you have one, and have them refer you to somebody in your area and let them know what you're looking for. So, those are a couple of tools that are out there if you want to work on that on your own. But again, if you're involved in this group, certainly let me know, and I can help you find somebody too. And the other resource I wanted to make sure to mention that I did bring up in the group was how, most of us are familiar with the idea that there is a suicide prevention hotline out there. And just back in July, they changed their phone number from a long, regular phone number that's hard to remember to simply be 988. So it's not 911, but it's 988. And let's see, I've got a card here. Let me reach around and get it. Got these in my office recently to hand out, and it looks to me like it's backwards. Maybe it'll be flipped in the recording, but it's you can see it's suicide and crisis lifeline. So not only are they there to help prevent people from committing suicide and to talk you through those hard, dark moments where you're contemplating that, but also if you're having another type of crisis that wouldn't really fit with a 911 call, where like a police officer or an ambulance would be able to help you, or a firefighter. Or if it's more of a mental health crisis, or some other type of crisis. And I'm guessing that if there were like an emergency with physical safety, they would probably connect you with 911 emergency number. They've got people there who are trained to respond to whatever those crises may be. But even if you don't feel like you're going to kill yourself, or like that's a danger, if you're facing another type of mental health crisis, that's what this line is there for. And again, they can get you through those hard moments, or at least do their best to help with that, even though it is a hotline. And so it's not a source of ongoing support. And they can, I've got to assume, try to help connect you with somebody who could provide ongoing support or give you some suggestions or resources for that. So it's just such a simple thing, 988. That I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that number and what the hotline is for, the lifeline. The suicide and crisis lifeline is what it's actually called here. So you can also text 988, which is helpful for a lot of people, or you can do a chat on their website, 988lifeline.org. So, all right, that's all that I've got for you this time. And if you are watching this before Christmas or before New Year, and if those are things that you celebrate, I certainly hope that things go well for you, that it's smooth and meaningful, and that you're able to do something to acknowledge your loved one, and to honor them, and how much you're missing them, and to keep them in your life in a way that is helpful and meaningful. So again, third Tuesday of the month, 6 to 7:30, and you can go to our website, hom.org, and click up at the top, grief support, and you can find information through there about our group. There's a little paragraph that at the end says click here, and you can learn more that way. You can also just Google search Hospice of Michigan grief support, and it's the first link right there. Arbor Hospice Grief Support, similar as well. Hospice of Michigan and Arbor Hospice work very closely together. We have a lot of the same programming. So if you're involved with Arbor Hospice, that's perfectly fine too. And you can find the group that way. And I think that our group is even on Arbor Hospice's grief support flyer. So just to show that you can access it at either route. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share this with somebody if you think it might be helpful, or to review it, or whatever you want to do with this information. I do like to get the word out there about this great resource, this no-cost support group for men who have lost a spouse. And one last thing, I'm sorry for this long outro here, this long ending, but we do have men's groups as well for, well, we have one that is a general loss group that is not specific for loss of spouse. And we have had one for grieving fathers. I want to say that that one might actually not be available going forward in 2023. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. But the general men overcoming loss group, whether you lost a parent or a sibling or a friend, or I mean, you wouldn't be turned away if you lost a spouse, but I believe the facilitator would probably point you towards this group so that that group can be available for others who may not connect with some of the issues that you would if you lost a spouse or a partner, like you would connect with in this group. So those are available too. And so you can let others in your life know about that, or maybe that applies to you. So thank you. Take care. Stay safe. Got a blizzard coming. I keep hearing about this weekend of Christmas of 2022. And happy holidays as much as they can be for you. Thanks.